and we get a little tiny script again, and it's
Yeah.
like, I you know what? Uh, I don't think I wanna die on the
Yeah.
battlefield, and I'm
Well,
like,
let's
"This
die together.
this isn't earned!" Like, no
I
one
like how your
cares!
audio is going, your camera's freezing, you're going crazy over there, Berg.
No
So
one
you're pumping so much
cares.
hate.
No. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Screened In podcast. Here at the Screened In podcast, we watch anything and everything that's on our screens. That includes movies, TV, video games, anime. If you name it, if it's on a screen, we're probably talking about it. Today, on this episode, we admit we were wrong and that Zac Snyder is the best director of all time. There, I said it. Okay, Zach, you can stop calling me now. That's right. On this episode, we covered Rebel Moon Dose, something about scars. joining joining me is the jalapeno and your guacamole dip, John
Oh,
Artaglaire. How are you, John?
oh man, I'm doing a lot better now. That's gotta be one of your top tier intros right there. That was great.
Thank you.
First of all, Rebel Moon Dose is such a good name. Like that just goes so well.
You know what it reminded me of? I was trying to think of something that was like ESPN The Ocho.
I'm just picturing the Rebel Moon and that big impact font, Dose, on the screen. Oh my god, but yeah, this is the movie. Everyone's been talking about it. Like we said, if it's on our screens, we're talking about it. This is what the people have been talking about. They've been wanting it. Couldn't get enough of the first episode. Ever since we released it, they said, I can't wait for the second movie to come out.
I I might be allergic to it, John, because I'm about to sneeze.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, it's lingering. It's
Uh,
lingering. Oh man,
th- uh,
it went
this
away.
this movie, I remember during the first episode, you told me, I think, like, oh, they filmed them at the same time, and like the second one's coming out in like 2 months. And as soon as we hit stop record, that information went out of my brain, and I completely forgot about it. And then I think like last week, it just came out. I was like, oh, it's out now. Because I think we were talking about what we should do, and you're like, "Yeah, we could do that when it comes out." I was like, "It's out, Burger. It's already out." It's oh man, this is what if like just overall, like without talking about the movies at all, what like a failed like franchise. Like you could tell this was probably they were hoping this would be like the next big like Star Wars or something.
Oh yeah, I mean, they did a making of documentary that I watched.
Oh, you did? I
Yeah.
never watched it.
It's about like 25 minutes long, so I was like,
Oh,
I'll put this on in the background.
did it give you a new appreciation of the movie?
I'll say you know, it's funny. I think like no mat it did give me insight actually, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And it gave me an understanding of what this is and what these movies are like because
Okay.
like the behind the scenes is still incredible. Like the making of is still awesome. The concept art was absolutely
Oh,
gorgeous. And, like when you see the concept art, I was like, "Oh, I want to see that movie. I want to see that." Like I felt like I wanted that and
yeah.
it it just doesn't deliver that. I will say I think majority of the problem is script, but also too, the CGI is not bad in this either. You
No,
can't tell what's CGI and what's not. There's like no quote unquote bad CGI, but let me just say this. The documentary made me realize that there are a lot of movies out there that go full force like this did. With all the production value, with everything behind the scenes that people were doing, completely, fully putting their all into a project, and it just falls completely flat. And the
Mhm.
thing that I really wanna compare it to now is there are so many AAA video games that fall flat on their face, and they have so much production value. They have so many people working on them, and, the, Suicide Squad: Kill the Batman is one that I'm thinking of right now,
Mhm.
and it's just, like, a good comparison of, like, just because you sink a lot of money into something doesn't mean that it's going to be good. You
Yeah.
need to have good bones underneath that, and I think the biggest problem with this is the script, and I only in part 2, that's when I realized it. That's when I kinda realized, "Oh, actually, I don't know if I hate all of this, but what I really hate is the script."
Yeah, I mean, that's the like you were saying, the CGI and everything is great in this movie. It seems like more and more as these release, Zack Snyder is getting known as can make really pretty, really well done movies, but they just fall apart in other places, like you said, the script or just oddities throughout. But because like when this movie opened up, it opens up on one of those big, like sweeping space shots where that huge mothership is like going past a planet. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I remember looked like so good in this movie. Like, these are great." And then it gives like, thank God it had just like an information dump in the beginning of just like a narrator explaining all the things that happened. Cause I was like, "Oh, okay, now I'm caught up." And then
And
I don't
even
know,
even that I thought was, like, really strange.
it was
Like, I was
long.
like it was, um, I think it was it's the weird part was that I'm pretty sure that was, like, uh, the sorry, just give me a second
The
here.
voice.
Yeah, I think it was Sir Anthony Hopkins,
You
the
Well,
same
Anthony
voice.
Hopkins is the robot, right?
Yeah, he's the same voice as
Yeah.
the robot, so I was like, "Why is our narrator the robot's voice?
Oh, yeah, it's Anthony Hopkins, who's also the robot Jimmy.
Why?"
I
Like,
don't know.
I was,
Budget.
like, questioned that right away. I was like, "Okay, yeah, he's got a great voice, but, like, why is the robot narrating?" And we
Uh,
never really get an answer to that either, so
no, I mean, he is kind of overlooking for half the movie, so maybe he is
sure.
kind of the narrator,
Okay, yeah, I can
but
see that.
I wanna this is another one of those times where I might just be an idiot, but literally, they do that whole, exposition dump in the beginning, and then they mention how there's but, "Oh, this small village is forming a resistance on the moon of Velt," and blah, 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 and then Rebel Moon pops up, and I'm just like, "Oh, that's why it's called Rebel Moon. They're on a moon." I had they were on a moon. I was like, "Oh, it all makes sense now." Like, I had no idea their planet was a moon. I was like, it's all coming together now."
Oh boy.
Oh god. So you knew that right
I'm
already?
gonna put that one squarely on your shoulders, John.
No. I mean, that was like maybe
But
I knew
maybe it
it
wasn't
going
really
into it.
explained very well.
It was probably mentioned. I mean, I'm sure it was said at some point, but just, like, going into the movie, I had forgot details, and that was one of them. So when I went into it, I was like, "Oh, they're on a moon. That's right. Okay. Now it all makes sense." Ugh. But
How quickly I'm gonna be really unfair, I think, with my review of this movie, but how quickly I was rolling my eyes at this movie as
mhm.
soon as it started. And I was just like, "Oh, no, I
That's the
forgot."
thing. It's like there's good stuff, and then there's stuff where, like, yeah, I was just rolling my eyes or just, like, things I just didn't understand, and not just because I'm an idiot, but just, like, choices in the movie.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
thought, like
there
I thought, like, yeah, they sometimes you look at things and you're like, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, this is cool." But it's got a lot of problems that it has to figure
Yeah.
out. I think there's people out there, um, just straight up, like, I don't know if we need to wait all the way to the end because this is such a pivotal piece of why we're talking about this, is because it's Zac Snyder and a lot of people
Mhm.
are criticizing it and all these different things is that, like, there are people out there specifically, mainly just everyday consumers that do enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
Uh, Not so many critics. Critics feel very
No,
similar
the critic
to you and I.
I mean, we
But
don't have to do some big reveal. We can just say
yeah,
I have it open right now. The
yeah, go
critics
for it.
for, A Child of Fire, the first one, critics had it at 21, and this one, they have it at 15. And, like, the audience score, like you said, for regular people, the first movie, it has a 57%, and, the second one has a 50. So, relatively, I think on Rotten Tomatoes, that boils down to, like, roughly 50% of people would recommend this movie.
Mhm.
And, like, that's not terrible, especially when you work in that part of, like, it getting memed because of Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And, like, if his name wasn't attached to it and this was just a Netflix original, I feel like the numbers might be a little higher. Maybe it wouldn't be, like, well received and loved, but I think
Well, I think I see what you're saying, yeah. If this was, like especially if this was, like, a young up and coming director,
yeah,
like, they would be like, "Oh, look at what this guy did," like, that they gave him the tools for this, it didn't work so well, but I tell you what, like, that this is pretty cool, that this
yeah.
exists.
But I wanted to get your opinion. I wanna see if you agree. I mean, we're gonna get into spoilers and stuff, but I wanted to see if you agree that this movie is kind of a tale of 2 halves. I think the second half of this movie was actually pretty enjoyable once, like, the enemies actually showed up
Yeah,
and,
okay.
like, all the battle scenes happened and all that. That's where I feel like Zack Snyder really shines, and he has all this crazy, just war going on in these
Yeah,
ships and these mechs and these traps and bazookas, and that was all really cool.
absolutely. So, like, even even that part, it's like we have this incredible surrounding cinematic that was created, like Zack Snyder had people grow wheat in this freaking part of where they were doing just so that they could harvest it, like this town is huge, all these different things. It looks great. It looks fantastic. You have creatures. The robot looks cool.
Oh, the robot's so cool.
So cool. Even has like a really awesome part in the movie. Um, and that's surrounded by really weak, really, uh, not fleshed out characters and script. And even inside the second half of the movie where you're like, "Oh, this is so awesome," and you start to forget that, like, of how little you care about any of this. You start to
That's
forget. And then you're like, "Oh, that was awesome, and that was awesome, and that was awesome, and that was really cool that he planned it that way, and that this and that
yeah.
happened," and you start to forget, and then Darian Bloodaxe and some other character who have barely talked to each other are on the battlefield, and we get a little tiny script again, and it's
Yeah.
like, "I you know what? Uh, I don't think I wanna die on the
Yeah.
battlefield," and I'm like,
"Let's
"This
die together."
this isn't earned. Like, no
Yeah, I
one
like how your
cares.
audio is going, your camera's freezing, you're going crazy over there, Berg.
Network is struggling right now. No
So
one
you're pumping so much
cares.
hate.
No
No,
one
I agree, like,
and then they go over the hill and they start fighting again, and we're like, "Oh, yeah, we're back in it, okay." It's like, "Just don't open your
dude,
mouth, I guess so this movie will be fine."
this whole thing, it's like those main, like, 6 people they went and got, you just don't care about them. Like, when they have their little round table before like, the night before where they all kinda talk about the reason why they wanna go after whatever they call it, the mothership or whatever,
Mhm.
and they all, say these stories about how, "Oh, yeah, they came to my town and killed everyone there," or, Titus is like he's the only one I know the name of, Titus. He's like, "Oh, yeah, had me watch kill all my men. They right in front of me." I'm like, okay, I guess, like, was I
Uh,
supposed to care up until this point? Because I really don't.
yeah.
Like, it didn't do anything.
You
Um,
know who has, like, probably the best character arc in this is I'm gonna find his name. Oh shoot, he's not gonna be in, like, the main part of the cast. The best, uh, fully fleshed out story for a character is a side character
is it the,
of
soldier?
A Aris. Yeah, the soldier who protects the girl from
Yep.
basically being sexually assaulted and raped, apparently.
Yeah,
Like, excuse me,
and
but
then he stays in the town and
and
kinda
then he
helps them,
stays in
and
the town and he tries to fake him out and they catch on right away, but, like, he has one of the best stories, like,
but where did
how did
he go? He's a soldier. Like, at one point, when the lady with the, swords dies,
where was he
eh
in the battle?
when a toddler comes out and stabs a guy to save her,
Yeah.
when she dies, he runs out from the women and children. So I think he was there to, like, protect them, but for
Okay.
the entire battle scene, he doesn't do anything.
Oh,
And I'm like
interesting.
and it's not like they don't frame it in a way of, like, he's cowering off in the side or anything.
No.
They just don't have him do anything. And I'm like, "Okay." I know he was, like, a new soldier. He was still a trained soldier. You would think you would want him out there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very,
It
very good point. It's
um,
you'll only have to scratch the surface like this a little bit for that for it to kinda fall apart. That's my biggest
I
problem with
mean,
it.
that's the pro like, in between all these visuals and things, there's just times where I think about it and, like, during that battle scene when the the head general is like, "Alright, you can now fire on that town, like, I don't care
Right?
anymore."
Right.
And the guy's like, "But what about the grain?" And I'm like, "That's such low stakes." Like, you have this massive spaceship that's so advanced, all this stuff, and, like, you're gonna be brought to your, like, knees by lack of grain to the point where, like, you wouldn't just roll up and just destroy this little village? Like, how is this little village, like, have that
Josh,
much leverage? It doesn't make
the
sense.
the other part I wanted to talk about was, like, oh gosh, it feels like choices are made just because, like, Zac Snyder like, this is why I think Zac gets a lot of heat for this is because it feels like choices are made, and it's like someone shoulda, even if he wasn't the direct person making the choice, it's like,
Mhm.
why? It didn't make sense. Okay, so, like, the grain is a perfect example of this. We have all of this technology, and they're using a regular, like, scythe
Burger,
from,
I'm
like,
so gl
God
this
knows when
was this was my biggest gripe with the movie.
to
I was
harvest.
literally so mad. You have I know, like, in other like, Star Wars,
Yeah,
there's places that are more desolate, they're kinda junky, or they don't have the
sure,
tech.
sure.
This town, like you said, they're using scythes. They're using, like, early 1900s techniques, and what really like, I was literally, like, saying this to myself, and you know what really put me over the edge? They're putting the wheat on, like, a cart pulled by, like, um oh, let me get they have to say the name of these, it's like
What?
Urachus or something.
You're on fire. Keep going. Yep.
They
Go ahead.
go to put this wheat, they're using all
Uh-huh.
this stuff, and the cart is hovering,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "So let me get this right.
So
They're
so
using the most basic tools, but yet they still have access to hover carts. Why don't they have something to do this wheat?" It
I
makes no sense.
it makes so little sense, and, like, the we've talked about this before because everything we do here, John, we cover fantasy genre and, like,
Yeah.
sci-fi so much in whatever we watch, anime, movies, TV, video games, we cover it a lot, and we always kinda talk about, like, suspending our disbelief of stuff,
Mhm.
like,
Oh, you have
and
to.
yeah, and but the thing is, like, 'cause people are gonna be like, "Oh," like, they're gonna hear us talking about this, and they'll be like, "Oh, where's your, like, imagination? Like, where's your, like, just you gotta suspend your disbelief." No, no, I don't have to. That's actually the job of the media that I'm being shown, is to
Yeah.
suspend my disbelief.
Like,
If I can't do that, like, I understand that I have to be bought in and willing to, but trust me when I say I am more than willing to buy in. I
yeah, like,
love to get lost in a movie.
they should have had something, like, really rickety or, like, just, make up some old looking harvesting robot type thing
Sure,
that you would be like, "Wow, that looks like a piece of junk," but
right,
yeah, they're in a small little village, secluded, that's all they have, not
definitely.
scythes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. The
ugh,
one chick has a robotic arm.
yeah,
What are we doing here,
that's
people?
what I mean, they're and those were ancient, she said. So it's like, yeah, that made no sense, but we've been dogging on it, I do wanna say something. Did you know
What are you gonna say, John?
what do you ooh, you taking a sip of something there, Burger? You know, right as
I
I'm
just
talking?
gotta I mean, like, talking about this movie's putting me to sleep a little bit. I just gotta enjoy some good old coffee, maybe a little
Oh.
bit of HP brew.
Ooh,
Oh,
that
yeah,
packaging
that's
looks really
right.
cool.
Uh-huh.
Look
Yeah,
at
this one
that.
right here is a mushroom coffee fusion. Uh, and it is, a potent nootropic mushroom blend of lion's mane and chaga extracts.
Ooh la la.
Its
I
roast
know
level
what
is
some
a
of those words mean.
3. I I know. Its roast level is a 3, acidity is a 3, and its body is a 4. This is by HP Brew, and its packaging is fantastic. There's also this other kind we got here, the hemp coffee blend, which is hemp protein powder and a fair trade specialty coffee from South and Central America, but it is specifically video game inspired. HP Brew. You can get it off their website right now.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, the merch that they have on that website, if you just like bring that up, John, I
Mhm.
will say the labels are pretty awesome. The coffee tastes amazing, but they've got some One Piece
Whoa.
inspired merch.
What'd you just say? I'm
They've
on
got
their site.
what's that?
I said, "I'm on their site. I'm emptying my bank account now."
Okay, yeah, we got some One Piece inspired merch, some Rocket League merch that I'm sure you would enjoy, but, their t-shirts are pretty awesome, which I didn't even know until we were about to record this, and I saw 'em and I'm like, "Oh, this is cool." I also got, like, some Zelda mugs and stainless steel coffee mugs for you. But
Oh,
HP
awesome.
Brew, go check it out. We certainly, enjoyed the taste.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's keeping me up talking about this. But what were you talking about, John?
Oh, what I was gonna say is, did you know that this movie actually has already set a record?
Oh gosh, I'm a little bit scared about what the record is.
It actually, within only a few weeks of release,
Okay.
it has set the record for, most slow motion wheat shots in a movie because the amount of slow motion harvesting wheat that they do in this movie is insane. I The slow motion budget for this movie has to be off the charts. The I really think there was part of me at a certain point that thought they were padding the movie length because of how much gratuitous bundles of wheat were getting thrown or buckets of stuff were getting dumped in slow motion.
I have no words for that.
Did you
I have
pick up
no
on how much slow-mo there was in this? Especially of just mundane tasks?
Speaking of slow-mo, John, and I know we're just going from rant to rant, but when this spaceship was coming down and all of the gravity, like, started evening out in the ship and they were falling, our main
Yeah.
characters are falling. Do you remember the slow motion scene where our villain kind of, like, passes by Cora, and he's, like, got this, like, crazy face, he's like, "Oh,"
Oh god. I
and
don't
I was like,
remember off the top of my head,
I was like
even though I watched it 15 minutes ago.
I was like, "What is this?" It was
Oh.
kinda cool, but also really weird at the same time, kinda in that way, it was like just like the punches from the first movie, which
Oh
thank
gosh.
goodness we didn't see any of that.
Yeah, more of the fire katanas came out or whatever you not the lightsabers. No, no, no.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Those things
fire
are I gotta say, those are pretty cool looking,
are
and, like,
cool.
they, like, turn things into, like, magma when they hit them. Like, it's neat.
Yeah,
Um,
it's cool. It's pretty cool.
that just this is just gonna be we're just talking about random stuff from this movie. We're not gonna talk about the
Let's
story.
let's do something. Let's just rattle off a couple things we did like about this particular movie, some
Oh, there
specifics.
there are things that I liked,
Alright,
like,
let's rattle them off. Let's talk about them.
the robot, Jimmy or James,
Oh, yeah,
I
so
loved,
cool.
like, all his parts in this movie, like, when he's just, like he has, like, these big antlers on now, and, like, he's just kinda overlooking, and then, he shows up and talks to her name's Cora, right? And then kinda disappears, but when he comes into battle, I'm like, "This is awesome." I'm like, "This looks really cool because it's a robot, it's fully CGI." But, like, that whole part of the movie was really good to me. Like, I think that last, like, half hour, like, when that huge ship, like you said, is going down, all just visually really cool, and you can just kinda throw the story out and just take in this huge battle scene.
Yeah, definitely.
So that I really liked, like, that I had to give credit. That's why I was like, it's a tale of two halves. Half of it is wheat, half of it is a cool battle. So,
Yeah, I really liked the robot too.
yeah, he was a great part of the movie.
It also has a really, like, cool storyline, right? Like, so now that we get, like, part 2, it's, like, a little bit more fleshed out.
Mhm.
Like, um, we know we've seen, like, a scene of, like, Cora had, like, killed, like, the princess,
Oh,
but
yeah,
the
that was a
king
cool
gets
scene too.
slayed. Yeah, the king gets slayed, and then you realize that, oh, that's the king that, like, this robot's supposed to, like, protect,
Mhm.
essentially, right? So, like,
Yeah.
that gave us a little bit more insight into him. So there are, like, specific character moments. The other thing I did really like is, like, the general storyline, like, the the battle action storyline of where we go from one place to the next, where they they don't really insinuate, they kinda do, but they just show a lot of slow motion grain shots, which really takes you out of it. But if you were maybe if we were led into a little bit more of, like, how they were gonna be really clever about it, and the town kinda has a good plan about, like, what they're gonna do, and there's some moments where you're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, they got a little trap door there.
Mhm.
Oh, they got this plan to, like, sneak on this ship," or whatever, There was a lot of cool things, there, like, during the battle and just, like, from moment to moment, like, how the
Yeah.
story was written about, what happened when. Um, I guess it's
The
like
story itself is a cool story. Like, it just on face level of this adopted daughter who got adopted by a military kind of powerhouse, turned her into the princess's bodyguard and one of the most elite soldiers ever just to have her
When
kill
I
the
hear you
princess.
when I hear you describe it, all sounds really cool.
Yeah. Like, I think this movie and I keep going back and forth on it because I don't know if it would have been possible. I think if they had
Mm.
figured out a way to make this one movie,
Okay,
or
I have a
or
totally
or
different idea.
if they took these 3 movies and made them 2 movies, I think it would have been better.
I have a totally different take on this
Go
that I
on.
think is the solution. Now,
If they had just scrapped it, would have been better.
if they just never did it.
Yes.
If Zack Snyder apparently in the documentary, the one dude says, "Oh, yeah, since, like, 1995, Zack Snyder's been talking about this with me."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, boy, that's okay." But here's my thing. To fix First of all, get a new scriptwriter. Secondly, to fix this and make us care more about the characters, make it a limited series.
Yep.
Make it an 8-episode limited series and then give us a movie
It's
because
too short and too long at the same time.
such a perfect way of putting it. Exactly. It's like, cause then if you did that, like, could you imagine, like, one episode just being like Darian Bloodaxe's episode where he, like, gets on that griffin and,
Yeah.
like,
Is that
that
actually his name?
that's what I see here.
I was gonna say, I didn't know if that was his name or you just made up a cool sounding name.
Nope, that's his name. But, like, at least then we could, like, explore more of
Yeah.
each character's story, and at least that way, by the time we got to, like, this big battle and all that stuff, we would care a little bit more when they have those, like, emotional conversations with each other that we couldn't give a shit about.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
he's a great example that his little
yeah,
like, that when they're having that little I said that powwow, and they show what his life was, which I don't think they had alluded to in the first one, maybe, but he was a prince and, like, got screwed over. The same people attacked his whole kingdom. His mom, the queen, jumps off the building right in front of him, and, like, all this stuff, and I'm like, "Wow, this would have been" like you said, "This would have been a cool 50-minute episode."
yeah,
If it was just a 50-minute full episode just about this, that would have been awesome.
would've been really
'Cause
cool.
they have griffins everywhere. Like, that's just, like, they're I'm like, "This is so cool."
I mean, even, like, to a larger extent, when the huge spoiler coming up right here, but even at the end, when Gunnar dies, who is
Mhm.
Korra's love interest, I didn't give I didn't care at all.
No, I was like, "Oh, man, he seemed like a cool
Right,
person," like,
well, he's
but I
dead.
was like, I don't really, like, know about their, like, relationship, like, that didn't really I didn't really care too much. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
The other thing, before I forget, I wanted to bring up, at that ending part right there, when all of a sudden all those reinforcements just so happen to show up, they couldn't have just called those people ahead of time, but they're going they have essentially TIE fighters going over,
yeah,
and it's going from pilot to pilot. Every single person in this movie has been human or humanoid, and then cut to one alien dude pilot who's like a completely different, like, alien, and it
yeah.
was so he's the only one in the entire movie
You almost
who's like
forget in the first movie, there were a bunch of aliens that you got to see.
I completely forgot because I was like, "Oh, everyone's human, they're just in space, it's in the
Right,
who's this
exactly.
alien guy? Like, what the hell?
Who
Like,
yep.
how come there's not a few of them mixed in this town or
Why
something?" I don't know.
why not have one of the main characters be an alien?
Yeah, how
Like,
come none of the heroes are an alien?
yeah, one of that crew that you picked up, one of them should have been an alien, because then, like, that would have been something. like, something.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit more like, I don't know, just worked in. Like this one, I forgot that they were showing up a lot in the first one, but yeah, like this one, it was just not jarring's the wrong word. It was almost just kind of funny. Like
Oh,
there's just a
yeah.
completely different alien race for 5 seconds on screen.
Yeah, you're just like, "Oh. Oh, okay."
And I want you to go back
Uh-oh.
during that scene where Korra kills the princess and they kill the king and stuff. I want you to look at Belisarius and then look at characters from Planet of the Apes. He has the same haircut and facial hair. He has this big, like, swooped back hair. He just looks like a Planet of the Apes character the whole time. I'm trying to think of which one he looks like. Yeah, he has, like, the Cornelius haircut,
Oh my gosh.
where it's just, like, this big, like, long, slicked black, big poofy hair, then, like, a beard going down.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Ah,
I see it. I see it.
I do okay, like, I think we've ripped on this movie quite a bit, but once again, I'm looking forward to the 3rd one. Like, I'm gonna
I mean,
watch
this
the
is
3rd one.
I'm not gonna lie, at this point, it's been a really it's been my favorite hate watch of this podcast so far. And
'Cause,
I
like
know there's people that like it out there, but this is definitely I'm just, like, diving in, I'm saying it, I'm doubling down, and I'm just like, I'm really enjoying hate watching this. And I after 2 movies, I'm not I I don't think my mind is gonna be made up by a 3rd. Um, I don't know, maybe it will, but
I
it's always a
like, to
possibility.
like I said, like, it at least going into these, I can kind of, know it's gonna be good looking. Like, there's gonna be a lot of cool special effects, a lot of cool things, and it just stinks that it does fall short in so many of, like, the character development and stuff like that, where, like you said, like, you can just tear this movie apart, and if I know I did, I went into the movie in that mindset
I
of,
did
like, "Let's get a load of this," and then
Mhm.
you're just picking everything apart. But for someone who doesn't know Zack Snyder, for someone who doesn't read anything online, like, if I just said, "Hey, dad, there's this new cool sci-fi movie out. Go check it out." Well, watch the first one first. They might walk away being like, "Oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
That was pretty neat."
that's a good point. That's a good
So,
point.
that's why I say I wanna see the 3rd. I like,
But I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. Now I'm like, I need to get my parents to watch this
yeah.
somehow. Um,
The problem I see with the 3rd one is we've been negatively talking about this one, and the only real big positives we said are the battle scenes. Well, that big old battle is kinda out of the way. Now it's gonna go back to more of probably a lot of more drama. There's gonna be action in it, but I think it's gonna be a lot more subdued, possibly the 3rd
yeah,
one.
yeah,
And it's gonna try to be all emotional and dark and deep with, like, finding this princess, and
yeah.
so, I'm very curious to see how this 3rd one turns out.
'Cause here's the thing, like, when I was watching the second one, I just had to like be like, oh, you know what? Let me go back. Let me look at the other Zack Snyder directed movies that are out there. And like, it was funny, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right, Zack Snyder was really, like" it was huge when Zack Snyder did 300. Like, that's, like, what I remember
Mhm.
him like, the first movie by him that I remember
Yeah.
is 300, and, like, that was certainly a fun movie. I don't think anybody was like, "It's critically acclaimed," and I think that's, like, basically it for this guy is, like, if you go down his IMDb and just look at all of the ratings for all of his movies, if you want, uh if you want a weird middling movie that's overproduced, I guess you hire Zack Snyder. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. Dawn of the
I don't
Dead. Uh,
That's good.
I I did the one movie that I would stand up for in all of these is Watchmen.
Oh, that was a good one.
And I think at the time it was like, superhero movies, it was 2009, right? So there there weren't as many superhero movies at like especially not as many good superhero movies at the time. And this one was like dark and it was interesting and it was something different. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in. And I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
Uh, Rorschach's one of my favorite characters. I know it's a representation of a comic, but it was pretty cool.
I remember really liking that, and I've heard good things, I think, about Sucker Punch. I feel like that was another
S-
one of his kinda, like,
Sucker Punch
breakouty
is
kinda.
another weird one where
I've
it's
I've
like,
heard it's weird.
yeah, it's really weird. I think it's like very over sexualized, I think.
Oh, is it? See,
Yeah.
actually, I go on Rotten Tomatoes, and Sucker Punch actually has worse reviews than Rebel Moon.
Whoa. Yeah, a young
So,
girl institutionalized by her abusive stepfather retreats to an alternative reality as a coping strategy and envisions a plan to escape to help her escape. But I'm pretty sure like all of them are scantily clad
no. I
in
do
this
remember
one.
because I feel like I've heard good things, but maybe not. I do remember hearing it's, like, a weird movie, so
They're all weird. I mean, like,
yeah.
I don't know why, though I am a little confused from looking at all of these movies that he's directed and how they've scored. I am a little bit confused at, like, who gave this man the keys to the Justice League? Like, who thought this was a good idea?
I
I
mean, they probably wanted it to be different than Marvel, so they're like, "Let's get, like, a cool, different look of it and see what can come out of it," but
I mean, he did Man of Steel. It was an okay movie. I didn't mind that movie. Uh, he did Batman versus Superman before a year before Justice League, so I don't know what the timing was. Um, but I'm not seeing anything here. I'm just confused. Once you get
yeah,
into Hollywood, do you just stay there because you make friends? I don't
probably. And I think everyone just assumes the next one is gonna be, "Ooh, he's gonna really do it this one." So,
I don't know. Snyder
hopefully the
fans
next one is, the next Rebel Moon.
yeah, hopefully. The
But
Snyder fans are
anything
gonna
else you
come
wanna
after
talk
us.
about this part 2?
No, I'm done.
Alright. I would still say, I mean, if you saw especially if you saw the first one, sure, give the second one a shot. I mean,
Ah, yeah.
if you like sci-fi, if you got nothing else to watch, I think these movies are a fun ride at least. That, hey, if anything, you can kind of, like, razz on them afterwards.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that. Yep. So, I mean, hey, like I said, 50% of people
Yeah.
recommend this movie. So, what do
If
I
you
know?
love slow-mo grain, this is the movie for you.
Oh, so I just see it on the trailer. Slow-mo slow-mo grain aficionados say, "This is the best movie
Oh,
there ever was."
that actually reminds me, just before we end,
Uh-huh.
I saw a review of this movie that said, I think it was the second one, that, like, the trailer had a ton of scenes that didn't make it into the movie, and I didn't watch the trailer, so I'd like
Oh.
to go back and watch the trailer and see just how, if it is, like, a completely different kinda cut.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah. I think it
Okay.
was for the second one, so I'd like to
Okay.
go back and check it, but that's
Definitely.
it. Other than that,
Okay.
I'm Rebel Mooned out.
Okay. Well, that's been another episode of the Screen In podcast. Thank you to HP Brew for keeping me awake to discuss this fine
Yeah.
film. Oh, good stuff. Um, you can check us out on all the socials, Instagram, YouTube. We're mainly over there right now, a little bit on TikTok. If you want an invite to the Discord, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll
Mhm.
give you that link. We want more people to join and talk about all this weird stuff that we do. And
Yeah.
obviously, if this
Come
is the
join the
only
Rebel
episode,
Mooniacs.
the Rebel Maniacs.
The
And
rebel mooniacs. Come on,
Rebel
bro.
Mooniacs. Sorry. I messed it up. Uh, so come join us there. Um, and we got a few things up our sleeve. At the moment, we know for sure Dave the Diver is
Yep.
somewhere in the future. But we might have an episode between that before we get to it. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Please follow us, whether it's YouTube or any of the other podcast formats that we do audio on Apple, Spotify, and give us a rating. It really helps the podcast. We really appreciate it. And if you're a Zac Snyder fan, don't give us a rating. And this has been an episode of the Screened In Podcast. We'll see you again next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Adios, everybody.
See you later, everyone.